And now it's time for Music Theory at Home with Mark Grizzard.
18, 19, 20. Oh, hello. Welcome to Music Theory at Home. Listen, guys, I know that this is not where any of us want to be. We would much rather be on ISU's campus, back from spring break, and doing what we love to do. I hope this last week has been as stress-free as possible for you. I hope you're safe. I hope everybody's hanging in there okay. I know that we're just starting online learning for many of your classes, and we're all kind of jumping into the unknown together. So I want to give you all the resources you need to let this be, fruitful and productive time. Please reach out to me if you're having any technology problems. We do want to get things going and as smoothly as possible. So we're going to jump right in. I have a lot of resources available on ReggieNet that I might be referencing here. Obviously, I'm going to be showing a lot in these videos. Of course, you can pause and review. I will say your textbook could be a great resource here. We're starting in chapter 13 right now, and of course, there are lots of videos on YouTube if you search. Let me know if you have specific music theory questions as we go forward, or any questions at all about how this is going to take place. So, we just got back from quiz 2. We introduced the whole idea of there being a second tendency tone, right? And that is the chordal seventh. So, we've been practicing resolving our leading tones up and our chordal sevenths down. And before we jump into a new unit, I do want to confirm some of those details. So, we most of the time spent resolving root position 5/7 chords into root position 1 chords. As you might guess, you can have a 5/7 chord in an inversion, and the concept of tendency tones is going to be the same no matter what. So there's a in-class worksheet I'd like to take a look at together. You can see it on ReggieNet or hopefully on Shobi. Let's take a look at it. So at the top of this handout, we see part 1 asking for a Roman numeral analysis and then a circling of tendency tones. So the Roman numeral analysis should be no sweat for us. So I'm going to do it like a cooking show here, and hey, there's our Roman numeral analysis, right? We see triads and 7th chords in various inversions. So of course, while we're talking about 5/7 chords, hopefully we caught that we have a triad on our 2nd chord here. It's a 5/6/4, right? So we can go through all this and look for our 2 tendency tones. The first is, of course, at the bottom of the page, the leading tone. The leading tone has everything to do with what key we're in. So every C sharp is a leading tone. And hopefully we notice that it has been treated correctly because our leading tone needs to resolve up. Cool. Now, the other tendency tone we have is, of course, the chordal 7th. So our triad in measure 1 does not have a 7th, so no tendency tone to worry about there. But in an A, C, E, G, our G is the 7th. It resolves down on our bass, and in our 5/4/3 chord at the end, we have it in the alto, right? So we'll notice that things are easier in an inversion. So the bottom of the page asks us to do this in reverse, taking these Roman numerals and creating SATB harmony. Of course, our bass line is going to be given to us by the Roman numerals. There's going to be a lot of correct answers in the upper voices. I'll give you a second to give it a shot. Hey, and we're back. Okay, so I've taken a shot at this. Maybe your what you've done is exactly like mine. Maybe the upper voices are a little different. Hopefully the bass is the same. Or you didn't do it at all because I'm not collecting it. No judgment. Here we see ascending bass line according to our Roman numerals, an F major triad in in root position. Then a C major minor 7th chord in 2nd inversion, which means we have a C, E, G, B flat, and G is in the bass. And then a 1 chord again in 1st inversion. So, are there any tendency tones here? No, our tendency tones are in our 5/7 chords, and of course those inversions, and hopefully it's starting to become a little repetitive here. The leading tone is going to be in each one of these chords, and when we have a 7th chord, our 7th chord is going to be resolving down. Leading tone has everything to do with what key we're in. Chordal 7th has everything to do with the
chord itself. Sweet. Okay, in minor, you might guess what we're stressed about right now. Root position 1 chord, going to a first inversion 5/7 chord. And wait for it, we need to raise our leading tone in minor, right? Yes. So that is one of our tendency tones. Our Roman numerals are taking care of this one for us. And my alto takes care of the chordal 7th. So hopefully that's making sense, because of course our two tendency tones here are the leading tone and the chordal 7th. Hopefully we're realizing it's actually easier in inversions. When we are in root position, we're worried about parallel fifths and all that stuff because our bass is leaping from 5 to 1. Here we have smooth, contrary, stepwise motion. That's kind of the ideal. Cool.
So in the same resource folder on ReggieNet, we see a PowerPoint presentation entitled Exception 1 and 2. What is Exception 1? Exception number 1 is that inner voices can resolve the leading tone down. So we see here the Star Spangled Banner at the very end in G major. Right? And the has tendency tones, inner bass, and tenor. And nice and smooth. Then at the very end, where's our leading tone? In our alto. Of course that wants to go up, but in the altos we'll know. It's something that happens often. Our total effect here is still nice and smooth. Our tenor is on the chordal 7th, resolves down just fine. So there we see that is exception number 1. Inner voices, alto and tenor, may resolve the leading tone down to scale degree 5. Right, that's a review from way before all this business. So now we see our second example here is a folk song, I think, long, long ago. Nice SATB voice leading. Well, of course, we are scanning for tendency tones, which we see in our 5/7 chords. So between measures 1 and 2, we have That to Me. A nice smooth voice leading, soprano and bass are creating this sort of duet, parallel thirds. And it sounds nice, right? However, if we put on our theory brains, we recognize that our sopranos actually ended up on the chordal 7th on the word to, which means that should go down, right? Here we have uncovered exception number 2, the pretty clause. Is this something you have to do? No, this is something you can do. And boy, oh boy, is this one niche. We have to talk about it because our workbook does it really quickly. The soprano may resolve a chordal 7th up when it continues a motion of parallel thirds. That's to say, if you're rocking a duet, that cool parallel third activity can trump the idea of a chordal 7th resolution. So you may resolve your chordal 7th up only in this circumstance. And you might live a wonderful life without ever having to do this. However, you can do it. Heads up on that. So exception number 1 and number 2 are now in our vocabulary. Exception number 1 is a lot more useful. Cool, let's take a look at the homework. So homework due Wednesday at 9 a.m. at your leisure between now and 9 a.m. is 13.2, part 2, F through J, which is the bottom of this page, bottom of page 155 if you have a real workbook, or of course you can go to Norton. What do we see here? Resolving 5/7 and its inversions. This first example given to us is a root position 5/7 chord going to a root position 1 chord. What do they tell us? For root position 5/7 to 1, make one chord incomplete, right? Because it's harder to be root position to root position. Which chord did they make incomplete? They made the 1 chord incomplete because otherwise you might have some parallel fifths. So their leading tone goes up, chordal 7th goes down. I've now crafted a few correct answers for B through E you can look at your leisure. But maybe what we are worried about is example F. It's going to be another 5/7 to 1 chord. It's in minor, hint, And we will probably want to make one chord incomplete so that you avoid problems before they start. Cool. So F through J for homework. And then over to 13.3, part 1, C and D. Here is exception number 2. Here is the pretty clause. Our first example shows soprano and bass, parallel tenths. I mean, you could even argue it's whatever, a 17th. Nonetheless, we have this little duet activity. And in the process, we have a chordal seventh that is acceptingly going up, right? And so that's what they ask us to do. Example B, I didn't assign because there's a huge typo in it. Of course, it's not a 5-4-2 chord. It should be a 5-4-3 chord so that we can have this ascending bass line. And it sounds very nice because of this duet. And that is the one time our chordal seventh can go up. So 13.3, part 1, C and D. And that is your homework. And there's episode 1. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to find me on Zoom for my office hours or send me an email. Have a great day, you guys. 1, 2, 3.